Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this week's video. In this week we're going to continue on with some features for the Deathmatch. I think this will be number 5 now. This is slowing down towards the end because as we get to the end we start to realise some of the tiny little errors in the way I did things in the first couple of episodes, which have made certain things at the end a bit harder, which to prevent you from having to recreate certain bits and pieces, which unfortunately to say is going to have to happen on one or two things to do with the HUD. But the very simple changes, but it is going backwards a little bit to reinvent it. Essentially, just to go over this again, typically I do build out projects before I make a video just to make sure everything's going to work fine. With this series I decided not to, which is a bit of a daft decision now. However, I wanted to have a bit of fun with it, but as it's turned into a tutorial series, yeah, that's left me with some issues. Anyway, with that being said, I want to make some progress in this video. We're just going to tidy up a few bits and pieces. So first things first, if you're in the same position as me, you'll have this map. Obviously mine looks green because I've got the nav mesh enabled, but you'll have that map, and you should have an AI character in your game. What we're going to do is we're going to jump into the AI character, and we're just going to fix one or two things. So we're actually going to set up a behaviour tree at some point to have the AI player fire. And just one of the precursors to get that ready is we're just going to set up a custom event, and we're just going to call this bot fire. Well, I pressed enter by accident. Call this bot fire, and we're going to plug that into this branch here. So essentially it allows you to use player input and bot fire. Because this is the AI character, essentially that one's redundant, so we can just move that out of the way. We're not going to finish the behaviour tree just yet. I just want to get that ready for now. I am probably going to do this video in segments as well. I'm just going to add little bits and pieces together, and hopefully it flows, but I'll explain every bit as we go along anyway, just like I normally would. Okay, so let's move into the next bit. Right, so what I actually want to do is I want to set up the respawn of the character, because currently it doesn't, the player character respawns fine, however the respawn node doesn't work as expected for bots. Now, I've had trouble with this. I'll be honest. I've had trouble with this because there are so many different ways you can approach it, but they all have slightly different advantages and disadvantages. Probably spent a week trying to find the best scenario and then building it out of this this part of the video, and just find out how far down the road am I going to run into another issue or something like that. So this is where I've gone from just winging it each video to just having a bit of fun with it, to I've actually needed to plan this end bit because I didn't want to lead you all to a point where we're all going to fail together. So what I've decided to do, so if you remember, when the player dies, it takes a reference to the controller that's being used, it destroys the character, it casts to the game mode, which gets this respawn player transform, it gets a random spawn point around the map, and then it spawns your character there. Now, unfortunately, this isn't going to work for the AI characters. Now, the reason being is because this restart player node doesn't work all that great with an AI controller. Where this passes in an AI controller, it doesn't really work as expected. And the other thing that this respawn player does, not to get a bit ahead of ourselves, to keep a track of the player's score, we're going to need to make what's called a player state. Now a player state will essentially, it's almost like a temporary game save file for just a player's information. That might be the wrong description, but that's effectively what it does in a sense. Now, when our character dies, when we restart it, it keeps the player state the same, which is fine. Now, unfortunately, when you attempt to restart a AI character, it doesn't. It gives it a new. It doesn't really have a way of keeping hold of the original player state. So yeah, we've had to go a little bit different way about it. That's a boy. I want to give you some actions. So I might end up cutting all that speech out, but I don't know yet. Right. So the way we're going to do it is we're not actually going to kill. We're not actually going to destroy the bot. So we don't need a reference to the controller. We're not going to destroy. We don't need the first person game mode. We do, however, want to keep the spawn points sort of random picker. We don't need this, and we don't need this restart. So all you do need to keep is you get actors of a class, pick a random, and a transform. Because we're going to need to pick a random spawn point still. What else are we going to need to do? Right, so what we're going to do is we are going to set actor transform. Set actor transform. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to make our character temporarily invisible. We're going to spawn a placeholder ragdoll character to fall on the floor to appear to have died. And then whilst that's falling on the floor and being all dead, we're just going to move the bot to a new location and then reactivate it. So essentially we're just doing a bait and switch. We're just taking the working character out of the scene, moving it to a new location, and then all while that's happening we're just going to get an actor to play dead, essentially. So what we've done here is the sort of get a random spawn point with the transform. That's now set into the set actor transform, so that's going to move this entire character. And we do want to teleport. We just want to take the whole lot and just teleport it somewhere different. So until I think of anything else, that's all this is going to be for now. Hit compile. Now, pardon me, we need to arrange for when we die, we need to set our character to invisible, and we need to spawn a ragdoll. So let's just nip back to the first person example map for a second. And let's just do a duplicate of this USP character. Actually, let's not. One sec, let's just delete that. Let's just go and double check where this AI character is. I knew I shouldn't have done that. Hit AI. Let's just nip back into this. So this is, yeah, that's fine. Let's just make a clone of this AI character. So right click on your AI player, hit duplicate, and let's just call this one Ragdoll. And essentially we don't need any of that. So just delete the entire blueprint. That's fine. And we just want to change a couple of things. So the capsule component, if we scroll down, well, we don't want it to be visible, we're not asked. We want to set the collision to, I guess it would be no collision. Hit compile. Go to your mesh and scroll down. We want to simulate physics on this one this time, because essentially this is going to be a ragdoll, so we just want it to fall on the floor. Now, we don't want it to block all, because we don't want to be able to shoot it when it's on the floor, and we don't want our character to be able to walk over it when it's on the floor, because you'll end up kicking it around the map. We don't really want that. So if we set this to ragdoll to start with, underneath the preset, but then go back and switch custom. Now that'll keep the ragdoll settings, except we just want to change the projectile to ignore. So now when it does ragdoll and fall on the floor, it's not going to fall through the floor, but my character, which is a pawn, is going to ignore it, and also my projectiles are going to ignore it, which is exactly what we want. Do we want a weapon? Yeah, let's keep it. But the camera, delete that, and sorry, the boom and the camera, let's delete both of them, because they're just unnecessary assets that we don't need to deal with. I don't even think the character is going to move, so you could... Yeah, let's delete that. It doesn't even let me delete that. I think that's a perk of the character class, so I don't really have that as an option. Hit compile. Okay, I've just closed the menu bar at the top. Don't do that. Toolbar. Hit compile, hit save. We don't need that for now. Okay, now I've gone straight back into the AI player here because it was the previous blueprint I had open. But if yours hasn't, just navigate back to your AI player. Get that open. Right. So we need to spawn that ragdoll. So this is our current die sort of function or event. I'm just going to disconnect that by holding Alt and clicking the line, and it'll disconnect the line. I'm just going to drag this down because I'm going to essentially rebuild this die function. Okay. So what do we want to do? So first of all, what we want to do is we want to make sure that our I'm just thinking we're going to want to set our capsule to no collision, because we don't... Just to explain why I'm thinking this, the capsule itself is what registers the bullet hits. So the bullets will hit the capsule first, which is essentially a character. I'm just thinking once we die, we're not going to want to be able to take more shots when we're dead. So that's the event graph. I want the capsule component, and we're going to set enabled. Is that it? There we go. Set collision enabled. And we want to set that to let's try no collision. I'm just worried that it might fall through the map. We might fall through the but let's see what happens. I guess. Next we want to get our mesh, and we want to set the visibility of this to not visible. So leave the new visibility unchecked. This means that it's not visible. From the same mesh, we also want to set the collision enabled on this to no collision. This is just going to get us completely out of the way and make sure that it doesn't collide with anything whilst we're invisible, because we don't want any rogue projectiles hitting our character and just bouncing off an invisible component. So let's think about this. So we've set our collision on our capsule to no. The visibility's gone to 0. Oh, actually, thinking about it, so our mesh has a weapon underneath as a child. So if we propagate to children, this means that the visibility of my weapon is also going to be set to invisible. Now, just while we're on the weapon, I feel like I should check the collision on this one. Okay, so the weapon's set to no collision, so that's not going to cause us any issues, so that's good. Okay, so we're setting that. So at this point now, we're going to be invisible. So what we should do is we should spawn actor of class. Now, because we duplicated our character earlier and turned it into a ragdoll, we should have ragdoll as a class. The transform, now this is going to be our get actor transform, and essentially this get actor transform is where our AI character is currently stood. So we want to spawn the ragdoll in exactly the same place, which that should do. The collision handling, I think I'm going to leave to default. But depending on if it glitches out, I might change it to try to adjust location. We'll have to see how that goes. Oh yeah, one thing I've just thought about. This ragdoll is just going to stay on the floor forever. Now, you might want to do that. I personally don't. I want the ragdoll, I want my corpse, the dead character, to eventually disappear. I don't want it to stay on the floor forever, because after I don't know, a 10-minute game of deathmatch, there's going to be bodies everywhere. I don't want that. So, with the ragdoll itself selected on the left, over on the right, go to search and type in life, and you can set a lifespan. Now, if it's set to 0, which it currently is, it'll live forever. If you set it to 5, for example, it'll last for 5 seconds. So as soon as we spawn this actor, a timer is going to start, 5 seconds, and after 5 seconds, this entire ragdoll character that has been spawned will kill itself, will disappear, which is exactly what I want. So yeah, that's one thing from the ragdoll that I forgot about. Let's hit save, let's hit compile, let's make sure that's all sorted, and we'll just close ragdoll again. So now we're back in the AI player. Let's think about the process now. So I shoot my character, he dies, yep. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a placeholder in here. That didn't work, did it? Put that in here. And let's just put increase deaths, because I need to put some code in here to say your death counters increased. Now I know we've created deaths and kills and ammo and stuff here, maybe not ammo but deaths and kills. We're actually going to relate to a player state going forward. Which I'll do as soon as we finish this ragdoll. I'll move on to that, and that's going to store our characters' deaths and kills for us. You'll understand why when we get to it. It's just a bit easier to manage. Okay, so we've killed our character, we've made ourselves not be able to be shot, we've set our visibility to invisible, and then we've spawned a ragdoll in our place. Knowing that our ragdoll's going to disappear in 5 seconds, let's delay. Let's just delay for, let's say, 3 seconds before we do anything else. And then let's respawn. So now let's drag our respawn function from the left and just drop it here. So we're now going to respawn, which again is just going to get a random spawn point and move our actor to this new location. Once we've done that, we kind of need to reverse all of this. I'm just thinking as well, we haven't disabled movement yet either, so maybe we should do that as well. Where should we do that? We put it at the beginning. Let's do that. Is that gonna be easier? Yeah, let's chuck it there. So let's drag character movement. So get your character movement component. Let's drag off that, and let's do deactivate. Yeah, that's the one. Deactivate. tap that in. Tell you what, put that there. Move that a bit closer. So we're deactivating movement. Now I'm hoping that'll prevent our AI controller from moving it. Because essentially, even though we're invisible, the AI controller, which is controlling this player, is still going to want to chase the character, even though he's dead, let's say. Because he doesn't know any different. Then we need to spawn this ragdoll, respawn the character. Now, once we respawn, kind of want to reverse everything. So, let's... I'm just going to copy all of that. Include that little node there. Press Control and C for copy. I'm going to move over here and Control and V. I'm going to drag these into place. Now what I'm actually going to do here is I'm actually going to move the deactivate and the character component to the other end. Because I want to set the visibility first and then be able to move. Because if this is all going to happen in a fraction of a second, however, if there is some delay in it, I don't want my character to be able to move around whilst they're invisible. So let's just rearrange that. And now we just need to reverse everything. So instead of no collision, we want collision enabled. Instead of no visibility, it's over. Just neaten it up. Instead of no visibility, we want visibility. The collision of the mesh, we want also to be collision enabled. And instead of deactivate, we actually want activate. Activate. Set active? No. Active. Is active. Toggle active. 1 second. Activate. I'm sure activate is an option. Activate character movement. Okay, that was weird. Why wouldn't that work? Bizarre. Unless I was missing it, you might have spotted it in the list then. If you did, then or fill me, but I couldn't see it. Okay, so character movement, and we're going to activate. So, from my point of view, I think, apart from the first bit, the increased deaths, so we're going to die, we're going to deactivate our movement, we're going to set our collision of our capsule to no collision, so we can't get shot once we're dead. We're going to set our visibility to invisible, make sure this boolean's unticked, so then your visibility is not enabled. We're going to set the collision to no collision. We're going to then spawn a ragdoll, which has a lifespan of 5 seconds. After another 3 seconds from that, we want to respawn the player, which is just going to teleport us to a new location. We're then going to reset the collision and the visibility, and then we're going to activate our movement, and our character should be able to move around. If all of that worked, I'm just going to save all, just in case Unreal decides to crash, and I don't like that. Let's give that a test. Fingers crossed I've not forgot anything there. Okay. So it looked like it were going to freeze them for a second. I didn't like that. So he's running around. Shoot it a couple of times. He drops down and dies. I can't shoot the corpse, and then if I look around, hopefully I don't have an invisible character somewhere. Are you over here? Aha, you're there, you're hidden. Oh, spotted me. Now I'm just gonna shoot him and see what happens. Oh, there's a point. Obviously, when we're shooting it, our health is now 0. Oh, I see what's happening. So, because my health is 0, I'm just thinking, why did the character not just die immediately? I'm going to assume that on our received damage, yeah, here under false we don't do anything. So from what I remember, the reason we deactivated that false from being another die is because it was causing a bug. But now we've got another bug. So I'm actually going to fix this in the respawn. So in our new die event, which is quite big, I understand that, you know. In the respawn player, let's just double click and jump into that. Let us set our death, it's not deaths. Let us set our health back to 100. Now what you could do is you could have, instead of that being hard coded, which is fine I guess if you're always going to have 100 health as the max health, you could set up another float to say max health amount, which you could change. Let's say if your character does something else, which, you know, if you, I don't know, if you level up, maybe you get more health, something like that, you could increase the max health, but I'll leave that with you. Also, what I'm saying is hard coding is not always the best thing to do, but if this is never going to change, then I can't see an issue with it. So set the health back to 100 when we respawn, and let's, just for the kick of it, let's also reset the ammo back to its default value of 25, which at the moment on the AI is not even being used, so let's not worry about that. Let's hit play and let's see if so I've killed the bot, it stays on the floor, can't shoot it, and then whoa, here he is. Now my concern here is that when he's spawning, he already knows where I am. I need him to not see me. Okay, so by the looks of it, he's not detected me. So there we go, that's cool. I'm out of ammo. He's dead, and he's respawned. Does he know where I am before he's seen me? Not sensed. Cool. Okay, that's cool. One of the things that I was worried about was that the AI character has a behavior tree, which when he sees me, he sets the location of us to move to us. Now, realistically, when you kill a bot or an AI character, you really want to restart this process, because essentially your character can respawn. If you imagine, we're not actually respawning, we're just moving the character. He could move to a location and still remember where we are. So resetting this would have been beneficial. So I think I'm going to find a way of doing that anyway. Yeah, let's see if we can. What would it be? Behavior tree. I tell you what, I'm probably not gonna worry about this too much just yet. Behavior, run behavior tree. Let's rerun it. This might work actually, to be honest. Let's chuck this in at the end. Or no, let's rearrange these. That into there like that. Put that there. All of this. All of it. Come on. All of this to here. To there. Okay, that's just me being my OCD, having to keep things in line, but let's hit that, let's hit compile, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run this behavior tree in the background, and I'm going to press play here, run that. I'm going to go back to Here we go. We can kind of see this in the background. Okay, I messed that up. So what I'm actually trying to do is I'm trying to get that behavior tree in the background. Okay, it's found me already. Okay, he killed himself. He ran into the death cube and killed himself. Let's just move this. I'm just gonna have to minimize this, I guess, for me to see it. Okay, so we can see there in the background the behavior tree is it's moving to a patrol location. I don't actually know where he is. Where is he? He's waiting now. He finds a new location immediately. Oh, he spotted me. He's now moving to me. If I kill him, see, if you see here, he actually respawned then, still remembering where I was. This AI player respawn run behavior tree. So it doesn't like this. This self? I'm wondering if that's the reason that it failed. Try that again. Whoop. Kill that. Let him respawn. Sensed straight away. Boom, let's close that. Okay, so that appeared not to error this time, so I'm going to take that as it's working. So self-controlled actor return value is the AI controller, which then is the target for this behavior tree. So for me, that is working so far, and I'm just going to check my recording. Okay, so that's 30 minutes that we've done so far. Okay. Okay, I really want to get this this player state sorted for you, so I'm going to leave this parked here for now, and if I run into any issues, I'm going to come back to it. But so far, I think that I'm happy with the bot respawning, and I hope that I've explained everything there. If I've rushed over any part of that, please leave me a comment down below and I'll support you. Don't worry about that. If it's not working, you know, ultimately I've not done my job here, so give me a comment. Excuse me, give me a comment and I'll help you out. But let's move on to the player state. This is just going to fill in a few more bits. It's going to make the next bit a bit easier, because I'm going to be able to use the data along with it. So let's just hit save, let's close these, and I'm just going to have a sip of coffee. Okay, let's continue. So what I'm going to do in your content browser is just go back to your blueprints folder with your UE4 ASP character. Now I want you to create a player state, so let's right click and go to blueprint class. Now under the all classes search, let's go for player state, and it's under actor info and player state. Hit select. I'm going to call mine PS underscore player state. Keep it nice and simple, and then essentially I just want to double click that, and we just want to create a couple of variables. So underneath the variables, there should be a few others. Just one sec, they might not be visible. Tick that, show inherited. There we go. Right, so actually I guess this doesn't really make a difference, but just for context now I've showed you. Under variables there are actually some default variables. These are ones that come with the player state base class. So, but you can't view them because essentially I've made like a custom player state. If you were to click on this little eyeball here and then show inherited variables, these are the variables that your parent class have in them by default. Now some of them you can set, some of them you can't. Now under player state, there are already some default bits of data which the player state naturally collects. This is whether it is a bot, whether it's a spectator, what the ping of the character is, what's the player ID, and what's the score. Now, the reason you can see things like ping and player ID and stuff like that is because this player state is typically used along with a multiplayer game. Now, there are things like player state, game instances, game managers and stuff like that, which all work together, and they keep typically online games in sync and stuff like this. These just collect a natural bit of data to help with that process, replication being one of them. But that's what this video is not for that. So there are some natural ones in here which I'm just used to seeing. However, it may just confuse the matter, so let's just leave inherited variables unticked, and let's just click variable. So we're creating a new variable, and this one's going to be kills. We're going to create another one, and let's call this one deaths. And let's create another one, and let's call this one player name. And we want the kills to be, I guess integer's fine, and let's go for deaths being integer, and the player name wants to be a string. That's it. Let's hit compile, and let's hit save. And that's it for the play state for now. Now, that's it for the play state sort of blueprint, but we're going to use this in our character in just a sec. But one other thing that we just need to set, just to make sure this is going to work as expected, is if you go to blueprints at the top, you have to be in your map for this to be there. If you're in your log or if you're in your character, this won't be there. But on your map, under blueprints, go to game mode and go to edit game mode. Now this is typically going to be the bottom one, the world override. I mean, these are more likely going to be the same, but just edit. Okay, so inside your game mode, on the right hand side you've got classes, and there is a player state class, and by default it's just the one that's built into the template or into the engine. We want to select PS player state. Hit compile, hit save, and that should be it for that. So next, what you want to do is let's just set up some basic bits and pieces. Let's just give our character a unique name for the player state to understand, and we're just going to slightly revise the scoreboard to take this in. So head into your UE4 ASP character, which is your main player character, and I am just going to right click. Actually, no I'm not. I think I used it. I'm after the event begin player, and if I'd have typed it in, event begin. By the way, yeah, this is what you can do if you can't find it. If you don't know where you've left it, press event begin player and it'll take you straight to it. If it doesn't take you straight to it because it doesn't exist, it'll create it for you. So yeah. So okay, so we put the HUD class. This is fine. There's actually a chance that I might just move this as well, but for now this will do. So underneath your event begin player, what I might actually do is let's just make a bit more space in here. I'm going to add what's called a sequence. Move this over a bit more. Now a sequence is essentially, it'll do this, then it'll do this, and it'll do something else. And I want something to happen in series, so I'm just going to move this up, so then I've got space for that to come there. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to right click and I want to get player state. And this is just a default get, which will just essentially search the game for what player state we've got. We then want to cast to the PS player state, that will allow us to tap into its information. We could drag that off there, we can add that up. And then as that, what we want to promote that as a variable, so then we can just use that wherever we want. And I'm just going to leave it named as player state. I think that's really easy to identify. Okay, so let me just give you an example of what we can do with this now. We can actually tap into this and say kills, and we can set the kills. And this player state is unique to this character. And for every character that you create, whether it's a bot or not, it will have a unique player state associated to it, which is good because then we can use that to track the character's score and deaths throughout the game, along with the scoreboard. There's one thing that we just need to check with the AI character, that inside its controller it's set that it wants to have a player state, because by default bots don't have a player state because typically it's unnecessary. And I'll show you something else actually. If we go back to the example map and we scroll down to the bottom of your world outliner and press play, you should see, if you scroll down here, we've got a player state. And we've only got one of them, so that is telling me that this player is not set up to have a player state. So let's just fix that quickly. So conveniently our AI player is here, and we've got AC bot, which is the AI's controller. Well, let's just hit edit while that's there. I know the game's running, so don't worry about it. Let's hit stop, and then now we want, on the right hand side under AI, wants player state. Let's tick that. Let's hit compile, let's hit save. Now if you don't know if yours didn't work that way, another way to get to it is go back to your example map. Under your blueprints folder, which you should already be in, under AI, go to your AC bots, and on the right hand side, wants player state, you should tick it. If this menu doesn't look like this, make sure you've got the AC bots self selected, because if you've got one of these selected, you'll have different options. But yeah, AC bots, and tick that. With that being said, now if you go back to our map and press play, you should see two player states. So one's for me and one is for the bot, which should now, well, it won't show it here because they're not visible. However, inside this player state there is kills and deaths related to that bot. So we can tag that to our HUD in just a sec. But let's first update it. So, sorry if that got a little bit messy there. But if it didn't, hopefully I give you some useful information about why and what we are doing. Okay, let's give our character a unique name for the player state. So let me just see if I can find something for you. Just give me a second. UE4 GUID. I just want to find a little guide for you and just drag it over just to explain something, because I might not explain this that right. Essentially what we're going to do is we are going to use a node called new GUID. Okay, so here it is, but the web doc doesn't tell me anything about it at all, so I guess it's down to me to explain. So essentially, if we want to create a really unique character name, we can use the GUID, and I don't know what the abbreviation stands for, GUID. If I was to hazard a guess, it's something like generated unique identification or identity. Because that's essentially what it does. Using the new GUID, you should never get two of the same number. Like, you shouldn't ever. From what I understand about it, you shouldn't ever get a new one. So what we could do is, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do a print string. I'll give you a visual representation of what I'm trying to say here. So to string, plug that into there. Let's hit compile, and as soon as I press play, it's going to punch it onto the screen. So that was a random. That didn't last very long, did it? 2 seconds. Let's set that to 20, just so I can explain what I'm on. I press play. That should be a very unique key, which if I do another one, I should never ever get the same code ever again. If I press play again, it should be another completely random one, which is really good because we can use that to generate a unique name for our character. So I'm actually going to keep that as toString. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something called append, and make sure you pick string, and I'm going to put player ... space and then GUID. So now if I was to do this, print string, I don't even know why I deleted that, and pump that into that, I've got a unique player reference there. Now, that doesn't look that great. So, and I think that's probably about 20 characters long, which I don't think I'm going to need. So, there's another little function that we can use called left. Now, essentially left is, it's a way to shorten words. So basically, I'm saying from the left, count this many characters, and then just delete the rest. Whatever's after that, I don't care. So if we go for this player, we've got 6 letters in player, we've got the semicolon, and then we've got a space. So we've got 8 characters there. And then if I want 3 unique characters after that, or 4, let's set this to 12, which will give me 4 unique characters. Plug that into there. And then hopefully that should be a unique reference to my player. So I'm player 55B5. Press play again. Now I'm player E050. And I'm hoping that if I was to do that 10 times, or yeah, 10 times for 10 players, we'd all be unique. I've done a lot of testing of this, and I've never had 2 the same. But I'm not saying it's not possible, because we are shortening it. However, with that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the player state, and I'm going to set player name. Plug that into that. So now what we've done is we've got the player state, which is a unique sort of data storage for my character, and I've set my character's name. Brilliant. The next things that we're going to set is going to be kills and deaths. So if we zoom out, let's go down to receive damage. The damage causer is then cast to the player, and then as the player, it's getting kills and it's increasing that kills. So let's get rid of that. Don't need that. As my character, let us cast to, no, that's not right, is it? How are we going to handle the kills on this, eh? Actually, as player state, there we go. So because we made a reference to our player state up here, where do we do it? Up here. We can actually tap into that and increase the kills that way. So as player, kills get, oh, and then here ++, and then we can do an increment int. So this adds 1 to it, and then sets it. Yeah, drag that over. So hopefully now our kills will increase. And let's have a look at deaths. So for us here, we've got deaths plus plus. Let's get rid of that, get rid of that. Let's drag our player state on, get player state. Let's find deaths. Let's get those. And same as before, let's plus plus. If we die, we'll increase that death count. So that's that. So essentially all we're doing is we're just casting to this player state and we're just saying we'll set the deaths in that because my player state is for me. I'm going to die. Cool. So that's that set. So now we have to do something similar for the AI. So let's have a look. As the AI player. Go to the event. And let's just type in event begin player. There we go. Where is it? HUD. Now this is our AI character, so I don't even know why we're creating a HUD for that. So let's get rid of that. Same with this show scoreboard. We don't need that on an AI character, so we can get rid of that. So let's put here set name. And sorry, just to be lazy, let's go back to our character actually. So I'm going to go back to blueprints, go back to UE4 ASP, and I'm just going to be super lazy, and I'm just going to drag all this. No point doing it twice. Copy that. Go back to our AI character. Yeah, you can't right click and paste. Control V to paste it. And we should have a player state because we've created one. Cast to it. Let's hit compile and see what it complains about. So blah blah blah. So obviously we don't have a player name. Wait, one sec. Oh, I see. So the target's invalid. So let's oh yeah, that's a good point. So we've not made this variable here yet. So let's right click that and create a variable. If you don't have this option, there's a chance that you're right clicking on the text because that won't be there. You might have provoked a variable but that isn't the same. And if you right click on it, oh, that does work too. Yeah. So right click on the header and then create the variable. Hit compile, then these errors should go away. Now, obviously, we're a bot, so we don't want player. It's up to you. You can have player, but I don't want it. I'm gonna have bot, and I don't want it to be 12 now. So we've got 4, 5 with the space. I want another 3, so I'm gonna go for 8. Hit compile. Hit play. Oh yeah, it's not going to come up yet, is it? Because we've not done that. Okay, so we've set a unique name for the player, or for the bot, for example. Let's scroll down to our new defs. Increase def. We made this note earlier, so we want to do that now. So as the player state, get that. Let's get the defs. Let's get it, not set it. Let's get it. And then let's do an increase. Plus plus, increment int. Pop that in there. Pop that in there. I guess we could move this over. I guess we could move that. Yeah, I'm going to leave it like that because I think I like that like that. So our defs are being increased for this bot. Now, so far we don't get kills. What are we gonna do? I've not thought about this for the AI yet. However, get the player state. I guess it's exactly the same, to be honest, isn't it? So what we're doing here, when we receive damage, we're gonna die. Whoever caused that damage, which is probably me. Yes, okay. So we're going to drag off here and get the player state of this one. Whoever we cast to, we're going to want the player state. We want to get rid of that. Tell you what, let's drag that back. Let's get the kills. Get kills. And let's do a ++. Let's add that to that. Hit compile. So now we've got kills, deaths, and a name for the bots. Hit compile and save. Let's just check how much time I've done. That's another 22 minutes. So we're probably going to be close to an hour of a video now. Do I rush this next bit and try and get it sorted? Let's have a go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up the heads-up display to work better. Now we are going to need to backtrack just a little bit. So I'm going to close the UE4 ASP character and I'm going to close the AI character. I'm going to close all the blueprints, to be honest. I think this is a good time to press save all, just so then we don't mess up or lose any progress going forward. I've known some issues to occur when doing stuff with the HUD, so just because I've had issues in the past, I always save. It's just one of those things I do. So let's go first person. Let's go to our HUD, and the change that I'm going to make is going to be in the scorecard to start with. So let's just have a look here. So I'm gonna flip over to the designer for the scorecard. Now, okay, so what we were doing is we were casting to the character to get the kills. We don't need to do that anymore. Oh, I've just deleted the output node. So now what we want to do is what do we want to do? Sorry if the mic got loud then. What do we want to do? I think let's nip back to the event graph. Let's create a variable called player state. Player state. Let's find player state as a type. So I've just clicked on this little red bean here, which is the boolean, and under the search I'm just typing in player state, and you want to find your PS player state, and we want an object reference. Hit compile. I'm actually going to make this, I'm going to click this little eyeball here, which is, it's actually closed, but when you click it, it opens. I'm basically just saying that this is editable, and we can view it. Hit compile just so then that updates. Go back to your kills text, and now from the player state, let's get that. We're going to say let's get the kills of whoever's HUD this is, or what have you, and then from that let's plug that straight into that, and that's it. It's really that simple once you've got a player state. Pop that in there, make that look a bit neater. Anyway, we're running out of time, so let's go. Same thing for the player name. Let's get rid of that. Drag in the player state, get, and then you want to do player name, get player name. Plug that into that. Back over here. Boom. Compile. Get rid of that. Update defs. Same again. Let's get rid of all that junk. Drag in your player state, get that. Get defs. And then that's to there. And just back. Let's drag that back. Tag that up there. Hit compile. Just before we come out of this, let's just go to class settings, and on the left hand side you'll see a user list, and actually no, we don't need to change that. I don't think we need to change that, so I'm not going to bother actually. Sorry about that. Hit save. close the scorecard. I think the scorecard is absolutely fine now. So what we need to make a change to now is the scoreboard. So this is where I'm going to back up a little bit. I had the idea to use a list view. So when we went through that video, we created a list to hold all of these. The list view works a bit awkwardly, and it made this series a bit harder to create because of the issues that using lists creates, especially when you want to customize a list objects live. There was the way I'm about to do it now was just easier. It doesn't make it any worse, or or anything like that, but it's a no-go for the list. So on the left, select your list and hit delete. It is going to say widgets are in use. It doesn't matter, get rid of it. Now obviously we put our player X kills and deaths in a horizontal box, and that horizontal box was in a vertical box. What we want to do is we want to put another vert box inside this vert box. This will make sense in a minute. So scroll down and under panels, grab a vert box and put it on top of the other vert box that's already there. And let's just double click on this and name it player list, because that's essentially what this has just become. Now with that vert player list selected, up in the top right hand corner you want to select is variable, and this just gives us the ability to edit it on runtime. Hit compile, just so then that's okay, and then we're just going to flick over to graph and just see what we've done in here. So luckily we didn't do anything. Let's get rid of that. So now we set our player list as a variable, we can use it. So let's drag it in, let's get it, and at some point we're going to want to add a child. Now this child requires a widget as an input, but we've not created one just yet, so let's do that. Let's create a widget. Now tag that into there, and whatever we do create, let's put that as the content. Okay, so if you remember when we created this scorecard, we'd made that variable called player state where we got all our deaths and names from. When we select this now scorecard and hit compile, and if we refresh the nodes, actually we didn't expose it. Let's just click on this magnifying glass and browse to our scorecard. Let's go into that. Go into your graph, select your player state, and down at the bottom let's just tick expose on spawn. Again, that's an apologies from me, I did forget to tick this whilst we were doing it, but this is an easy fix. So let's just hit compile, hit save, and you can close your scorecard. So hopefully now you've gone back to your scoreboard, and you can see that now we've enabled that expose on spawn. Our player state is something that this scorecard is expecting, which is really good, because what we can do is we're creating this HUD at the beginning of the game. So what we can say is let's get the game state, which if you remember from what I said earlier, the game state and the player state really talk to each other. On here, there should be a players array. So the game state also tracks how many players have entered the game. So for each of these players, so if you type in for each, you'll get a for each loop. And what's really good about this is we're asking the game how many players are currently playing. Give me an array, so give me a list of all the players you've got. We're going to say, well, for every player that's in this list, let's add that player to a scorecard and add it to the heads-up display. So from every array element, let's get the player. Can we just tag that straight in? No. player state, cast to player state for every character that we've got, and as the player state, tag that into there. Okay, so what we're saying is at the beginning of the game, when the HUD is created, let's get the game state. Let's find out how many players are currently playing. For each of the players, let's cast to each player's player state, and let's get all that data that's within it, which allows us to create a scorecard with the player's name, the player's kills, the player's deaths, and let's add them to our panel. Now, one other side note, this scorecard here, if we click on this and browse again and go back to scorecard, I'll tell you a little neat thing. If you go into the graph, if you click on your functions here on the left, update kills, deaths, and player name. Because these are set up like this, because these are set up as functions, you can see they're pure. Because these are set up like this, they actually update live during the game, which, just for those who don't know, if you've got loads of players, loads of data on the HUD, this might not be the best way of doing it. But for small games, it's fine. And for this, what I mean by this is, if you go back to your designer and click on kills, for example, here I've created a function binding. That's typically the bad bit. If you was to create a binding, here you can see that you can just select player state and pick a thing to link to. That's another good way of doing it. If you've got loads of stuff going on in your game, this is a bit of side information. What you can actually do is go to your graph and create the function yourself manually, and you can see here that this one's slightly different. These are binding functions and this is just a generic function. It doesn't really say anything different, but yeah, this one will need to be called, so you can do that in your event graph and decide when to call this function. You know, whether I'll leave that up to you, but this is usually this will only be called when you tell it to, whereas these update kills, deaths, and player name will sort of refresh themselves all the time, which is quite heavy on resources. But sorry if that I just went off on one then. I just thought that'd be some useful information for some of you. Anyway, so I'm going to go back to this now. We're all done. Hit compile, hit save, make sure that's all saved. I'm going to press file and save all, because I always like to save everything before I test. Let's hit play. If I hit tab, I hope I see two characters. So there we go. We've got the bot B4F and we've got player 8D3F. If I shoot him in the face, I get a kill and he gets a death. He respawns, and I hope that if I kill him again, I get 2 kills and he gets 2 deaths. You've now got a functioning deathmatch, essentially. Right, this video has already got well too long, so I do apologise for the length, but I hope there was enough in there to keep you interested. This project's really coming together now, and I do apologise that it has taken so long to get to this point. But as you can imagine, you know, in between each week I did want to post other slightly different content for those that are not interested in the deathmatch. I needed to keep it fresh for all of you. But with that being said, thank you for making it to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If anything didn't work, or if you've got any questions, please leave a comment down below. I'll be sure to get back to you. If it did help, please give me a like. It's a bit of feedback to me to let me know that you like it. And if you did like it and you want to see more, consider subscribing if you're not. I did check out my my analytics, and I did notice that the majority of people that watch my videos are not subscribed, and I'd love to change that. So consider subscribing. Anyway, enough from me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in another video. Thank you very much. Eyes on my display. You say we need a change, and I feel that you mean it. You mean